Shodanandana Prachadaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Janavallabha Girivara Jahari Shodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahams Priva Jakacharya Asto Dharata Shishimad Nitya Lila Pravista Om His Divine Grace Shilabhai Charanarvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj ISKCON's BBD Founder Acharya Jagaguru Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam Ki Shri Radha Govinda Ki Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tatojayam Udirayet Nastapareshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. Śrimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30, entitled Description of Adverse Fruitive Activities. Text 20. Yatana Deha Avritya Paser Padva Gale Balat Nayato Dirgam Advanam Dandyam Raja Bata Yata Yatana Deha Avritya Paser Badva Gale Balat Nayato Dirgam Advanam Danyam Raja Bhatayata Yatana Deha Avritya Paser Badva Gale Balat Nayato dirgam advanam dandyam raja bhatayata yatana deha avritya hasir badva gale balat Nayato dirgam advanam dandyam raja bhatayata Could you nip the incense out of there when they offer it? Ladies? Yatana, for punishment. Dehe, his body. Avritya, covering. Pasai, with ropes. Vadva, binding. Kale, by the neck. Palat, by force. Nayata, they lead. Dirgam, long. Advanam, distance. Dandyam, a criminal. Rajabhata, the king's soldiers. Ita, as. As a criminal is arrested for punishment by the constables of the state, a person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by the Yamadutas, who bind him by the neck with strong rope and cover his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. Purport: every living entity is covered by a subtle and gross body. The subtle body is the covering of mind, ego, intelligence, and consciousness. It is said in the scriptures that the constables of Yamaraj cover the subtle body of the culprit and take him to the abode of Yamaraj to be punished in a way that he is able to tolerate. He does not die from this punishment, because if he died, then who would suffer the punishment? It is not the business of the constables of Yamaraj to put one to death. In fact, it is not possible to kill a living entity because factually he is eternal. He simply has to suffer the consequences of his activities of sense gratification. The process of punishment is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Formerly, the king's men would take a criminal in a boat in the middle of the river. They would dunk him by grasping a bunch of his hair and thrusting him completely underwater. And when he was almost suffocated, the king's constables would take him out of the water and allow him to breathe for some time, and then they would again dunk him in the water to suffocate. This sort of punishment is inflicted upon the forgotten soul by Yamaraj, as will be described in the following verses. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Pangur Mamamanda Matergati Matsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Dibya Brindaranya Kalpachumada Śrimad Ratnagara Singhasanasto Śrimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prastalabi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Bamsi Bhattatasti Taha Karshan Venu Svanar Gopir Gopinatha Sri Estuna Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshvari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasandubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Yatana Deha Avritya Pasir Badva Gale Balat Nayato Dirgam Advanam Dandyam Raja Bhatayata. As a criminal is arrested for punishment by the constables of the state, a person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by the Yamadutas, who bind him by the neck with strong rope and cover his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. Two places in our literatures given by Srila Prabhupada and in the Śrimad Bhāgavatam are the description of the hellish planets contained. First, here in this chapter, description of adverse fruitive activities. Then the next and final chapter of the third canto, making it the largest canto in terms of numbers. 11th and 10th canto have more, yes. But up to the 9th canto, this is the largest canto with 31 chapters. Movements of the living entities. The suffering is not over, going through the sufferings of the hellish planets, but then rebirth. Prabhupada has pointed out and stressed again and again for us to understand that there are four main miseries of life: old age, disease, and death, but we forget what is equally traumatic: birth, rebirth. That will be described in detail in the following chapter. Very important preaching points or questions that always should be kept in mind, and Prabhupada emphasized to us the difference between human life and animal life. Questions must arise in the mind of a human being. why am I here? When especially, well, why am I here? Where did I come from? Why do I have to suffer? Why do I have to get disease? Why do I have to get old? Everyone so much on the bodily platform, everyone completely on the bodily platform. The Mayic illusory painting, which is simply a very small part of Krishna's energy, the material energy, to make one think that the young body is attractive. And that's in every species of life. You look at hogs, dogs, let's think of something, like really, silverback gorillas, ring-tailed lemurs, duck-billed platypus. What are those like gigantic Gila monster lizards? They're in Indonesia, Yeah, like that. Okay. Just
Spiders?
all kinds of but amongst themselves, they think, just like human beings, they think the opposite sex is so beautiful, and the whole everything is just based around it, This attraction. So old age robs the living entity of that so-called attraction. Is an 11th canto purport. Hirdayananda Maharaj, I remember him writing that because he was like the GBC in Florida at the time. Old people, in these luxurious senior citizens' homes playing shuffleboard. You know shuffleboard? A useless waste of time, but, said this is the greatest crime that old people, they should naturally be taking to spiritual life. Not, old age is to force you. Get serious, get it together. You're old, you're ugly, and by calculation, you don't have many years, like somebody like 16, 18, 20. I got 60, 70 years ahead of me. I got I don't even think about it. Just see the potency of the pure devotee, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. When he came here, people coming to him were all very young, teenagers. You hear Govinda Das, you remember, we were just teenagers. He was barely 20 years old. Amazing. And at the time, never trust anyone over 30. Being situated in pure devotional service in your original eternal loving relationship with Krishna, you got it made. You've reached the perfection. And so powerful is that self-realization that it overcomes the external, it makes other people overcome that illusory lock-in, a very small conception, just attracted to the flesh and bones of a particular body in a particular species, in a particular time or fashion. And Krishna is the source of all beauty, all attractive nuances of fashion and art. He lives in the highest stage of artistic craftsmanship. We sing Yasomati Nandana in the song. And Srila Prabhupada, the pure devotee, can attract the living entity, it's so-called in the prime of their youthful life, with whatever the heck is going on, according to contemporary culture, and impress upon them the eternal reality, the eternal beauty of Krishna Sambandha, relationship with Krishna. We were reading in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in one of our morning verses, Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement is so wonderful that it can interest and attract all classes of people in the most sublime subject matter of love of Godhead. So, the description here in the third canto is, in these coming verses, is, let's say, the hellish planets in a nutshell. Whereas the fifth canto is a very elaborate explanation. 28 different types of hellish planets corresponding to a particular type of sinful activity that was performed. Not as much detail is given here as is in the fifth canto, although in one coming purport, Prabhupada writes, and this is particularly applicable, Prabhupada calls them the poor fellows everyone is a poor fellow in Kali Yuga. Kapila Dev himself says, men and women whose lives were built upon indulgence in illicit sex life are put into many kinds of miserable conditions in the hells known as Tamishra, Andatamishra, and Raurava. So Prabhupada immediately makes the point, following in the understanding of what is the utility or what is the purpose of union between a male and a female, is that children are born, which is a very important part of the rectification of the fallen conditioned soul. At the very beginning of creation, what was the order for the first and most saintly personalities? Procreate, fill the universe with living entities, so that they have a chance for self-realization and for further elevation. So that is the only purpose of union between man and woman. Vedic civilization. It is for the married couple and only for begetting children. But when sex life is indulgent for sense gratification, illegally and illicitly, both the man and woman await severe punishment in this world or after death. So, this is important for us to keep in mind. Pure devotee, he is Shreyasi. He sees where everyone's activities, endeavors, and desires, where it leads to. If you know that Krishna is the Param Gati, then you can see all other so-called gatis or goals that people are seeking. And if they're not actively made a decision to seek a particular goal, then the modes of nature carry them along. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, merrily, merrily, merrily. Life is but a dream as we go over the waterfall into the abyss of Tamagun.
I don't remember that part.
I mixed that. This is a Satsvarup Maj, free verse poetry rendering of Prabhupada boarding the Jaladuta. The black-hulled Jaladuta inched from its pier, carrying him, the Savior, to us. On our side, the hour was very, very late. The dumb tongues struck dumb, unable to utter the name of Krishna. The blind groped, the mad went madder, and more souls fell from the cliff of human life into the abyss of Tamagun. By his will, by his supreme will, the tremendous planets were staying in their orbit. The ocean tides were regulated. The seasons were in strict regulation. And by his will, by the will of the Almighty, the pure devotee was coming to rescue the damned. Check it out. If you want another experience of reading the entire Leela Amrita and or reading the entire Leela Amrita is a monumental, time-consuming. You can read the free verse poetry reading and get the essence and gist similarly. So when devotees of the Lord hear of the hellish planets, especially initiated devotees, and even non-initiated devotees, Ajamil, the most, and actually after Maharaj Parikshit hears in detail of the hellish planets, he's just like overcome with anxiety and compassion, and that is the basis for the beginning of the sixth canto, which we will touch upon here soon. The devotee is overwhelmed with compassion for the people, for all living entities, how to save them. At the conclusion of the chapter, Hellish Planets, which is the last chapter in the fifth canto, Shukadeva Goswami, there's a break in the narration. He says, I've described all of these things. Now what would you like to hear? So Shukadeva Goswami, he knew this is very important, so he set the stage, and also to show the beauty and high qualification of Maharaj Parikshit. What? You can be liberated by speaking and can be liberated by hearing. So Shukadeva Goswami is the supreme speaker, and Maharaj Parikshit is an example of the greatest hearer. Yes, he likes to hear. I have marked him. I will make him my disciple. I had no questions for my spiritual master. I simply wished to hear him, but I only had one question. How may I serve you? His mode of presentation was so high, but I was just struck with wonder. Whether I understood or didn't understand, I just simply wanted to hear. Oh, greatly fortunate and opulent, Shukadeva Goswami, he doesn't even have a cloth to cover his body. And he's the most opulent? How is that? Where it's one place in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that the materialist should never underestimate the opulence of a pure devotee and never try to equate or equalize his so-called temporary material opulence with the spiritual opulences of the devotee. We were hearing of Kolavechar Sridhar on his disappearance day. That's also, Prabhupada writes in the fifth canto. He includes a purport from the Chaitanya Bhāgavatam, how Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, the chief demigods, Lord Brahma is more opulent than Indra, the king of heaven, for certain. They shed tears upon seeing the greatness of Kolavechar Sridhar, who seemingly was so poor that he didn't even have a proper roof. Just like we don't have a proper roof on the Krishna Hall, and it's leaking when there's a big rainstorm. And even sometimes, I know when I moved into the room that they moved me into, anyway, there was a leak, and I had to get Dhanukari to go up there and fix it. So anyway, that's a little side tangent there. So, and that's the mistake that materialistic people make. They don't understand the position of it, or it could even be in reverse in regards to the so-called very renounced Durvasa Muni. He's seeing Marj Ambarish, who's a greatly advanced pure devotee, but he's in the position of being a Rajarishi, the emperor of the world. And there's so much wealth and money. We see the chapter, Pandavas retire timely. When Marj Yudhishthira heard of the disappearance of Lord Krishna, he immediately decided, I'm taking sannyas, I'm done, I'm going to the Himalayan mountains, I'm accepting the vow of a sage, and I will simply concentrate on Krishna for the rest of my mortal life. So Durvasa Muni misunderstood Marj Ambarish until he was given some very good lessons by the Sudarshan Chakra, and he then saying, I didn't understand how great you were, but now I understand. Opulent Shukadeva Goswami, I have to be careful not to go on too many tangents. Now kindly tell me how human beings may be saved from having to enter hellish conditions in which they suffer terrible pains. We glorify Srila Prabhupada, who's very dear to Lord Krishna, Bhutale, like the Bhutala Emporium in Jackson Heights. They actually have one in 28th Street and Lexington Avenue. There's a whole bunch of little Indian enclave there also. On this earth. And why is he so dear to Lord Krishna on this earth? Yes, because he has taken shelter of the feet of the Transcendental Lord. And what is the characteristic of taking that shelter? Taking shelter means to carry out the mission, fulfill the desires, just like we were hearing. Srila Rupa Goswami is so dear to Lord Chaitanya because he understood the inner feelings of Lord Chaitanya. Of course, those inner feelings are very, very exalted, esoteric, and elevated, but they manifest practically, and Prabhupada showed us, by wanting Lord Chaitanya's glorious Sankirtan movement, the holy name of the Lord, spread in every town and village of the world. So those two things are on parallel lines. We don't have to worry that, oh, I'm working very hard and I'm engaged in so many seemingly external things that I will not advance to understand the inner confidential intricacies. So like the mind, I'm going to say intricacy next, but then the mind mixes them up. It's good for comedic purposes, right? Yes. It's interesting, they added Jayananda Prabhu's appearance day. It was 2 days ago, but we celebrate his disappearance day. How do you make advancement? Jayananda was asking. I don't know, Prabhu. I'm too busy working or serving to try to figure it out. Srila Prabhupada worked so hard his entire life, especially prior to coming to the United States, what Srila Prabhupada had to go through. Read about Srila Prabhupada, what he had to do to get the 3 volumes of the Śrimad Bhāgavatam printed. Just unbelievable endeavor. And a lot of the time he didn't have money. One of the printers was like, to save a few paisa taking the bus or the train, he would walk miles and didn't even take breakfast. He didn't have money. And the printer's saying, like, did you take breakfast yet? So this is actually a great personality, one who sacrifices his life, his time, and his energy to save the fallen conditioned soul. And in the age of Kali Yuga, it's a no-brainer. You don't have to have an argument. Are people suffering? What is that? In Kali Yuga, people are misguided, short-lived, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Maharaj Parikshit, being a devotee, is concerned with how this can be stopped, forced to enter the hellish planets. A Vaishnava is paradukha dukhi. In other words, he has no personal troubles, but he's very unhappy to see others in trouble. This is a very important symptom that we should see. This is the definition of an actual devotee. Not that, oh, look how nicely they're all enjoying in Washington Square. It was 80 degrees. Everybody took their clothes off yesterday. Wow, that's so nice. No, but we should understand what this leads to. Those who have built their lives in illicit sex are taken to put in very miserable under-tummy hells, whipped on the back very severely. I won't go further. You can read it. It's horrible. They write songs. There was a song, I won't say by who. If dogs run free, then why can't we? Even one hippie interrupted Prabhupada, who was saying, you'll become a dog in your next life. Swamiji, you said that if I engage in these things, I will become a dog in my next life, but I wanted to tell you that I don't mind being a dog in my next life. And Prabhupada said, you have my blessings. Actually, he doesn't have his, Prabhupada doesn't. You can read about Prabhupada in opening up the San Francisco temple in the 3 months he was there from January to April 1967. That one hippie girl just had this really offensive outburst to Srila Prabhupada. I won't say what she said. It was malicious and violent and crazy. And one of the devotees sitting next, who wrote the memoir, I forget who, Prabhupada was just very silently saying to himself, it is the darkest of darkness. Prahlad Maharaj said, my dear Lord, I have no personal problems. So this is a very good time to concentrate our meditation. It's good. You can read the entire section of Śrimad Bhāgavatam, which goes all the way from the first chapter, the Supreme Lord is equal to everyone. Prahlad Maharaj, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu terrorizes the universe, on and on and on. It goes all the way through the 10th chapter, where all the different demigods offer prayers to Lord Nrsingadev. So this is one of the most important glories of Prahlad Maharaj, and undergoing such torture and such persecution, unjust, from the hands of such a demon who's his father, Hiranyakashipu. He doesn't want a personal benediction, but he simply is concerned for the fallen, conditioned souls. And when offered a benediction, and more or less urged or even forced to ask a benediction, he asked a benediction for the liberation of his father. I have no personal problems, for I have learned how to glorify your transcendental qualities and thus enter a trance of ecstasy. So Srila Prabhupada, just like a father, right? You ask anyone who is a father or a mother, do you want your son or daughter to have a better situation than you had? Yes. Right? I can think of my own father and mother. They certainly wanted that in their own way or their own idea. So, Krishna is the Supreme Father, and his pure devotee who comes to this world to accept the duty of becoming the Acharya, he gives us everything. He gives us a proper home to live in, the best home, the home of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is not Brooklyn, New York. This is Vaikuntha Goloka Vrindavan, inside the confines of this beautiful property that we now live in. Malati Prabhu told me something, she was speaking in a class, something I never heard before. Very nice brother and sister joined in San Francisco, Krishna Das and Saradhya, who was only 16 years old. And they came from like a broken family. Her mother even didn't want her. She even contemplated having an abortion. So she grew up like, the mother not. And it was such a situation where she needed a legal guardian. And Prabhupada is thinking what to do for this poor girl. So he asked Malati, age 22, and Shama Sundar, who were just boyfriend and girlfriend like a couple of weeks ago, and then now they're married, can you adopt this girl legally? So a 22-year-old mother adopting a 16-year-old. And it sounds fantastic, but, Prabhupada asked for it. We're going to get it done, So Malati went and convinced the government official, okay, boom, here's your stamp, and, So Prabhupada is concerned for everyone. You hear Prabhupada memories, that Prabhupada was completely wanted to give us shelter. And once that shelter is given, it should never be taken away or minimized by other devotees, God brothers. There's the story of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He came to open a temple in a particular place, and there was one brahmachari disciple who had become entangled in an illicit affair with a woman on the outside. And his other disciples, his godbrothers, ostracized him and drove him out of the temple. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta didn't know of this. When he came to the temple, he asked about the whereabouts of this devotee, this disciple. And they said, well, Guru Maharaj, this, that, the other thing. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, to rescue one person from the mire of illusion and instate him in devotional service is such a great and rare thing. And then to drive him away is the greatest, most offensive, sinful activity. My wanting him here properly sheltered is more important to me than to all these elaborate arrangements you've made. And he practically, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta refused to go forward with the opening of the temple. You go find him. In a big city, where are we going to look? And one of the devotees remembered that he was like a tinkerer, like he could fix things, and he would be able to fix anybody's watch. So, in India, in the shopping areas, like all the different particular things, they're in one area, the jewelry shop area. It's not like scattered all over. So they went to that place and they searched like maybe, however many number of shops, and they found him in the back room of one place fixing watches. And they came with like tears in their eyes, and like, Guru Maharaj, they were just so happy to find him. Guru Maharaj wants you back. And he came back, and both with tears in their eyes like that. And now Ajamil, for example, he might have had a family priest, but was he actually formally initiated? This is a question. So still, the holy name of Narayan that he uttered, even thinking it in regards to his son, Brahmananda, Pusta Krishna, Shrutakirti, that I can remember, they were with Prabhupada in Mauritius, Prabhupada's only visit. And he said, this is such a wonderful little country. It could be a completely Krishna-conscious country. So people from India were brought over there by the British and colonialization anyway. So they were driving, and there were like these young guys, young Mauritius, like 20, 22 years old, and they were like on a sugarcane truck, harvest the sugarcane, and they saw the devotees, saw Prabhupada, and they just like, Hare Krishna, mocking like that, joking, hee. And Prabhupada was asked, what is the result of that type of chanting, like it's a joke? He said, they're going to go back to Godhead. So Srila Bhakti said, so the Vishnu Dutas came and foiled the Yamadutas, who didn't make the proper exact calculation. Just like we see how the police these days with all these, liberal kind of woke laws, they can't arrest anybody, or like they're very, it's like, who's a criminal and who's innocent here? It's like just work, arrest the homeowner and let the squatter go free. Like what the heck, So up is down, down is up, black is white, white is black. Who knows what's right or what's wrong? So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, maybe some of you know this story. It's written. Sometimes it pops up. I tried to find it verbatim, but I couldn't, so I'll just say it. He initiated towards the end of his stay in this world. He initiated the devotee in Assam, which is in the eastern part of India. And he himself wanted to be a devotee, but his family were kind of averse. So after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati disappeared, he became influenced by his family and friends and fell back into his, non-devotional life. So the time of death came, and just like we hear here, the Yamadutas took him, and he was like greatly afraid. He's having to walk on the road to the hellish planets. He's very thirsty. He asked the Yamadutas, can I have a drink of water? And they show him a pond which is filled with stool, urine, blood, pus, bones, etc., mucus. And he says, I can't drink this. He says, I'm sorry. And they say, we're very sorry. This is, for those who are sinful, this is the only thing that's available. So he finally gets to the court of Yamaraj, and he's standing in the line, waiting to be judged. And Chitragupta, each person's coming up, look, all these things. Off they go to the hellish planets, dragged away. Finally, his turn comes, and Chitragupta doesn't. So Yamaraj directly asks him, have you done even one good, pious deed in your entire life? And he says, I am an initiated disciple of Om Vishnu Pad Sri Śrimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And immediately, upon hearing the holy name of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Yamaraj bows in pranam, and immediately Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati appears in the court of Yamaraj. And Yamaraj, he's the supreme, it's like the judge, order in the court. He's the one judge. Now imagine, like the higher authority comes in, the court judge. So Yamaraj completely turns over the whole judicial contemplation about this individual to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and says, please instruct me what should be done next. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta doesn't answer Yamaraj, but starts chastising his disciple. Why did you give up your vows? Why did you break the principles? And in crying and crying, he begs forgiveness. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta orders him, you go back to the earth planet and you take shelter. And Bhaktisiddhanta had a very powerful disciple who was formerly Hayagriva Das Brahmachari and became a sannyasi, Madhava Maharaj. And you take shelter of him, and stay in his company and never leave. He didn't actually die. He was in a coma, and everyone thought that he was dead. And he was brought to the cremation ghat. And when he woke up, he was on the pile of wood, awaiting the fire to be lit. And when he woke up, just after Srila Bhaktisanta ordered him to go back, imagine, you're in the court of Yamaraj, you're dragged by the Yamadutas, and you wake up. This is real second chance. And he's just shouting at the top of his lungs, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. He's shouting the name of Srila Bhaktisanta, and everybody just like freaks out, like, wow, the dead man comes back to life. And his family is like, what to think? He came back, but he just like completely ran away, and he didn't stop to think or explain to anyone. And he went and found his godbrother, Madhava Maharaj, and started narrating the story, and Madhava Maharaj stopped him. You don't have to tell me any more. I've already been informed. He lived another 8 years. He chanted very sincerely and very continuously, without break, and left his body in the temple. So, what to speak of the holy name? What to speak of the spiritual master will rescue you? But Srila Prabhupada has told us, don't make me come and do that. So we have everything there to not fall down, to not go back into sinful life, and to act on material desires. So it's already 9 o'clock. I only said maybe a fraction of what I wanted to say, but we will obey the clock. Yeah, thank you very much. Would anyone like to ask a question or a comment, appropriate and nice, to add? It has to be appropriate because people's gastric fires are starting to burn, and we don't want to cause a Ayurvedic imbalance in anyone's health, right? Was this a new story for many of you? You never heard this one before? Okay, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to appreciate that you were mentioning.
Loud.
Appreciate that you were mentioning the hellish planets in the end of the 5th canto.
Yeah.
It culminates in the story of a Jamil.
Right.
And it shows the power of the holy name.
Right.
Even though it's so ghastly and scary, the 26th chapter of the 5th canto, the Jamil story is
So, chapter 3, Maharaj instructs his messengers. Devotional service, beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. Etavan eva loke smin, pumsam dharma parasmita, bhakti yogo bhagavati, tan nama grahanadi bi. My dear servants, who are as good as my sons, just see how glorious is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The greatly sinful Ajamil chanted only to call his son, not knowing that he was chanting the Lord's holy name. Nevertheless, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, he remembered Narayan, and thus he was immediately saved from the ropes of death. This is an amazing purport. Check this out a little bit. There is no need to conduct research in the significance of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Actually, we don't need a theoretical class. We'll go immediately to laboratory. We'll go right out on Harinam and put the two chemicals in there, mix them up, put them under the Bunsen burner. You got to get fired up and see what happens. Boom. You'll get the explosion right in your face. In the age of Kali, no one needs to perform all the ritualistic ceremonies, which are extremely difficult to do. Therefore, all the Shastras and all the Acharyas recommend that in this age, one chant the holy name. Therefore, it should be understood that one is easily relieved from all sinful reactions by chanting the holy name of the Lord and chanting of his qualities and activities. At the time of initiation, all your sinful reactions over countless previous births, all erased. Your slate is wiped clean. You attend an initiation, and Bhakta such and such, your name is, and Bhakti and such, your name is such and such, Dave. Davy, doesn't the person look different? Yes? And all that sin is removed. Meat eating. How many, what is it for every hair on the body of a cow? How many years? And
That's how many times.
this is the only process recommended for relief from sinful reactions. Even if one chants the holy name with the Lord with improper pronunciation. It's like Indradyumna Swami telling the story of the devotee Pigpen. He became initiated by Prabhupada. I think his name was I forget. I'd have to research that. But when he started chanting, he was like, he couldn't talk. He was like just so moded out. But ultimately, he became like one of the biggest book distributors in the French Yatra. He will achieve relief from material bondage if he chants without offense. Considering all these points, therefore, intelligent men decide to solve all problems by adopting the devotional service of chanting of the holy name of the Lord, which is situated in everyone's hearts. Such persons are not within my jurisdiction. This is Yamaraj speaking. And the sages, we have begun this sacrifice. Those who do not wish to die, to enter the court of Yamaraj, they should. And Prabhupada consoles us all that Yamaraj is a great devotee, and he likes to be invited to sadhu sangha, where devotees are hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. This is very good for those who do not wish to die. And Yamaraj himself, in Lord Krishna's pastimes, became Vidura, who worked very, very hard to save the conditioned souls, in this case, Dhritarashtra. Sometimes the Lord and his devotees have to play the role of lowly creatures, Viraha, Mahatma Vidura, seemingly a Sudra. So whoever we are, whatever we are, wherever we, it's a divine, once we take the Krishna consciousness, are placed in the phalanx of Lord Chaitanya's army, no matter what our designation, is very meaningful, proper, and glorious. Even if by mistake or because of bewilderment or illusion they sometimes commit sinful acts, they are protected from sinful reaction because they always chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Therefore, to keep a Kandanam going all the time, good for you, for me, for everyone. My dear servants, do not approach such devotees, for they have fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord. They are equal to everyone. Their narrations are sung by the demigods and the inhabitants of Siddhaloka. Please do not even go near them. They are always protected by the club of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, Lord Brahma and I, and even the time factor, are not competent to chastise them. Paramahamsas are exalted persons who have no taste for material enjoyment and who drink the honey of the Lord's lotus feet. Now, who's qualified to be brought to Yamaraj? My dear servants, bring to me for punishment only persons who are averse to the taste of that honey, who do not associate with Paramahamsas and who are attached to family life and worldly enjoyment, which form the path to hell. Bring to me only those sinful persons who do not use their tongues to chant the holy name and qualities of Krishna, whose hearts do not remember the lotus feet of Krishna even once. Send me those who do not perform their duties towards Vishnu, which are the only duties in human life. Please bring me all such fools and rascals. Tasmat Sankirtana Vishnur Jangan Mangalam Amasam Mahatam Apikoravya Vidi Aikantika Niskritam. My dear king, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is able to uproot even the reactions of the greatest sins. Therefore, the chanting of the Sankirtan movement is the most auspicious activity in the entire universe. So to be able to perform this in the most unobstructed way makes it the most auspicious place. If this is the most auspicious activity in the entire universe, the facility we have here in New York City to do Harinam Sankirtan to the extent that we do, and that the potential that we have or can do makes it very, very great. Please try to understand this so that others will take it seriously. Grantaraj, Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. I apologize to you that now you'll be late on the prasadam line and you might get a skimpy portion. Huh? Grab it and growl?
My gastric fires whenever.